Thank you all so much for coming today. And like she said, I'm Julie, and this is Jordan. And then my other daughter, Allie, usually works with us on the farm. As you can see, we always have a lot of fun, but farming is very tough work. We get hot and sweaty and dirty and muddy and everything else, but it's still a lot of fun, and we hope that you're going to enjoy doing a little smaller version of what we do. So we chose the name Agape for our farm because it means love, and flowers generally, when you give flowers, you grow flowers, you do it, you love flowers. So that's why we chose the name Agape for our farm. And Jordan, you want to tell a little bit about the farm?
Yeah. So our farm is here in Jessamine County, and we have a lot of different things that we offer to our customers. We have a U-Pick garden, which we started 2 years ago. This will be our third season doing the U-Pick garden, and you can purchase a day pass and come out to the farm and pick your own flowers. And we have a little kids area too. I see some little guys on the floor where they can play while you pick. And then we also have our subscriptions, which is we do a monthly subscription. You can do a full subscription, which is 4 bouquets or 4 buckets of blooms, and you get one a week for 4 weeks. Or we have our half subscriptions, which is 1 a week for 2 weeks. So those are the bouquets. Or we do the buckets of blooms, and the buckets of blooms are basically if you want to do your own arranging, you want to make multiple arrangements or little posies, things like that to put around your house. So we have those subscriptions, and then we also have our flowers in Whole Foods. We sell to Whole Foods. We have some in Dodds right now, and then we also have them at Wilson's Deli, which is in Lexington. And then we also, towards the fall, we do a Cinderella pumpkin workshop, which is we have our pumpkins that we carve out and everything, and then you come to the farm and we do arrangements in the pumpkins. So you have a beautiful arrangement to take home. It's very fallish and pretty. And then we have a few other little workshops that we do at different places around the surrounding areas, little posy workshops and things like that. We also offer services to more like DIY brides, DIY weddings, and those would be like ordering buckets of blooms to do your own arrangements for the tables and things like that. We do bridal bouquets and boutonnieres and bridesmaids bouquets, just little, a la carte things. But it's mostly for the bride who wants to do it themselves. So that's everything that we have to offer to our customers on the farm. And did I miss anything?
No, you can just call us or email us, if you're interested in those things. And we also have a webpage, agapefields.com, that you can look at any of those types of offerings on. So now we'll get to why you came here. You probably came here because you love flowers and you maybe love gardening, or would you like to start your own little patch of flowers in your yard because you're tired of paying for them and you want to get out there and do it yourself. So what we'd like you to do first is you want to pick a site. You need to pick a site in your garden that has full sun, at least 6 to 8 hours of sun, so in your yard. And you want to have good access to water, and you want to make sure your soil drains well. And what you want to do is be sure we have recommended tools for you. So you want to be sure that you have digging tools like a good spade or a shovel, a hand spade or a hori knife. That's the little one with the orange handle, and lots of times those are really nice because they've got measurements on it, increment like 6 inches. They'll have measurements on there. And then a metal rake. And what we have done is started with like a raised bed. So the first thing, we're going to do this for you out of a raised bed. If you're going to do a raised bed, you want to, can you hear me in the back, or am I talking too soft? You can't hear me? Okay. Yeah, You want to, this particular one here is like a 4x10, but we're going to do our example for you, a 4x8 box. And you would fill the bottom with dirt, and then you would compost in it. But if you're just going to go into your bare ground at your home, if you're starting from scratch, you'll want to pick an area, like we said, in the full sun, and you want to start with removing all the vegetation from the area. Remove all your weeds, get the grass up, and get your area nice and cleaned up. And then the next thing you would do is you would want to break up the soil. So we try to do a lot of non-tilling. We're trying to transition over to not tilling, so you don't destroy so much of the ecosystem that's in there that's so good for your soil. But if you need to till, you till that, and or break it up with your spade. So you would want to get your spade or your shovel into the ground about 4 to 6 inches deep, and just turn the soil, go through your area and turn the soil and get it nice and worked up. You want to make sure that when you do this, that your ground isn't too wet. Make sure you're not doing it after a rain, or, the ground, we have that clay soil, so it gets pretty dense and saturated. What you can do is grab a ball of soil in your hand, and when you squeeze it, it forms a hard ball. It's too wet. So if you do that and you grab up a ball and it crumbles in your hand, you can crumble it in your hand, it's okay to work your soil at that time. So you want to be sure to do that, and don't leave any of the grass. If you by chance decided to till and you still have the grass there, get the grass out of your area if you're going from a new patch. Let's see. Like I said before, that too much tilling will make your garden production go down. So try not to till as much. So once you've tilled, or once you've put your shovel in, you're breaking it up, go ahead and remove all your rocks that you have. We've had a lot of rocks out at our farm. Get the rocks out, get the dirt clumps out, because that's just going to get in the way of your little tiny seeds. It's going to just cover them up, and they're not going to be able to germinate in anything. So the next thing we'll do is compost. Now everybody needs a little compost in their garden area. This is what's going to give nutrients to your soil and make it more manageable to grow in. It's going to improve the soil structure. And if you're once you start composting, if you do the compost and you're on a fresh track of, a very fresh one that you just tilled for the first time, you haven't grown in it before, it'll probably take a couple years till you have beautiful soil, right? Mm-hmm. When we first started out the farm and worked up, all we had was that red, clay stuff, and we just kept working in the compost every year, like 2 to 3 inches of compost. And now we have some places in the garden that are just really nice and great to grow in. So you just need to be patient with that, but it will help your first year. It will help. It just takes a couple years for it to get really beneficial. Okay, so once you get that compost in, you want to do it like I said, a 2 to 3 inches of compost, and work it in. Just work it into the top couple layers of your soil. And then just smooth out your whole box in your area there. And then on top of that, we like to use, in our garden, we like to use a slow release fertilizer, something that's organic, like Osmocote. So you would just sprinkle that, something like that, on the top. Work it in a little bit, rake it in, and then wet it. Just go ahead and wet your whole box so everything kind of settles, and then wait a couple days and then do your planting. So the next, there's a box. So the next thing that we would do is, how many of you already garden? Everybody. Well, we should probably have had an advanced class, huh? Well, I should have asked that at the beginning. So in your bed, you can do drip irrigation. drip irrigation is really nice, or you just do overhead watering with your hose. The next thing we do is choice of flowers. So zinnias, these are all going to be beginner type flowers. So are you guys past the beginner stage then of flowers? No? Okay. So zinnias are just the best staple little flower for the garden. You have so many different varieties to choose from, and the colors, and they're just great. And we always like to include those. And another one is cosmos. Those are nice and tall, like a filler flower. Your zinnias would be more like if your focal, and then your cosmos would be like a supporting flower. And those get tall, and they have beautiful frilly little stems on them, the leaves, and they fill out a bouquet really pretty. And you can look. Next is sunflowers. Now the sunflowers I recommend when you do your garden is do branching sunflowers, because those, when you're not going to just have the single stem and be done with it. If you have branching, you're going to have several blooms to choose from, and to fill your vases with around your house, or whatever you're going to do with your flowers to give away. We like the branching and the single stems, but for a home gardener, I would probably do a branching sunflowers. Branching? Yes, branching. It's also nice if you can get the pollenless ones, so you don't get pollen dropping on your tablecloths or whatever, your table. So pollenless ones are nice. Okay. And the next zinnias marigolds are really great because they keep away insects. So we like to put a couple marigolds in our boxes here and there, and they help keep the insects away. So that's another flower that's called a cut and come again. So when you cut it, it's going to come again. Same with your zinnias. You want to be sure that you always deadhead or keep cutting them back so that you have more flowers. If you don't cut them, then you're not going to have a continuous bloom through the summer. Zinnias, you want to deadhead, or you always harvest them. Always, if you're not going to want to bring
harvest.
them in, yeah. Keep cutting on them, because the more you cut, the more you're going to get. Same with the cosmos. These are all pretty much cut and come again flowers that I'm telling you about right now. And then another one that's good for your garden to get height would be a snapdragon. Now they take a little bit longer to grow and see the flower in your garden, but you could get starts like maybe at one of the garden centers and for your snapdragons, but they make a nice spike in your arrangements. And this is just a little layout that we had for a cut flower garden. You can see up at the top corner we have the marigolds to kind of keep the insects out, and then zinnias, and then the marigolds, and then cosmos kind of spread out. And then we also included some foliage, like your herbs that make great foliage for your arrangements. So we love to use basil. We used rosemary. Basil's real easy to grow from seed. And then rosemary, I would get something at the garden center if I was going to do rosemary. Sunflowers, we've allowed space for branching sunflowers. And then so how we've got the spaces in here, you could do what we call succession planting. A little later on, you could scoot this over a little bit and leave a space right in there, and you could succession plant your zinnias, because zinnias, as you probably have all grown zinnias before, they are known to get powdery mildew. So if you want to have flowers all summer long, wait a month and plant another. Go ahead and seed another bunch of zinnias in there, and you'll have those for the rest of the summer. I would do that also with your sunflowers. You've got those there. Go ahead and plant one a month out, 3 weeks or a month out in between your sunflowers that you have there.
Are these all direct sow?
Yes, you can direct sow all those. I mean, you can always start plugs yourself in the house, but everything here you can direct sow. Once the weather, our last frost, go ahead and put them in your box and except for the rosemary, like I said, that one. But everything else can direct sow. And it helps too if you have something like a little light frost cloth or something, because we have trouble with birds coming in and eating our sunflower seeds, or mice getting them up from the ground. So we start our sunflowers in little plug trays and grow them for like a week and then put them out once they get tall real fast.
We have a room in the house. It's called a grow room, and it's got the lamps that heat the little seeds when we put them into trays. And so then we start them out inside and then take them out into the field. But we plant tons and tons of like all these sunflowers and things like that. So we started out sooner like that, but we direct seed also. So it's what you have available to yourself, as far as how you want to do it and how much you want to put into it.
Yeah, and if you went and started your seeds right now, if you got the little tray like from Lowe's or someplace, and you wanted to start your own plugs, you could do it. Just find a nice sunny location in your house where they get, a full day of sun, and then you'll be able to plant them out in a couple weeks when we know we're past the danger of frost. And if you do by chance plant them out and we get one of those freaky frosts in May, just, you may be able to save it with a cover, and if not, you just plant another seed in that spot. You're just going to be a couple weeks out, so that's good. You want to be sure when you are planting your seeds that you keep them moist. You need to water. You got to keep them moist so that they will germinate. When they dry out, they're not going to germinate. So you need to be sure that you keep them really moist. And once they get established, once your garden gets established, you can go a couple days without having to water, and they'll take a little bit of the dryness that we have around here. And don't forget about weeding. If you're going to start your own little garden and you haven't before, it sounds like you all have, and you know what weeding is. And it's terrible. You have to stay on top of it, or those plants will overtake your flowers.
What do you think about the wheat field? Felt?
Landscape fabric?
Yes.
Yeah, we grow in landscape fabric. All of our plants are in landscape fabric, and if you go that route, that helps. They still, the weeds will still find a way to come up, but it cuts down. The one with the felt on the back is really tough, though. We found it was very tough. The weeds or stuff would get grown up into it, so sometimes it was hard to remove it, and got nasty. So we just have just a plain woven. There's no fabric underneath it. It's just a woven, like a mesh, really just woven, a tight weave that works real well, and we burn holes in it. But you could just do an X, or you could get a propane thing and burn holes in it like we do. Yeah. But that really does help cut down on the weeds. Yes, a whole lot. Bugs, we raise our things organically out of the farm, so the only thing we use is a chrysanthemum-based oil spray for the bug control at our farm. Now, you all can use whatever you want, but you might need to do something to fight the insects if you don't want holes in your petals and things like that. But you probably won't be as picky as we are. So, but that is one thing you might need. Let's see. And you always want to make sure with the deadheading, like I said before, the zinnias, also with zinnias, if you cut down deep into the zinnia plant, like when they get about 12 inches tall, if you cut down deep in them and remove the center growing point, then it will branch more. So that's really nice about the zinnias. You get a lot more branching, a lot more stems out of them, and they'll be longer. If you like long stems, that's same with the cosmos. We always go on and we pinch them when they're about 12 inches tall. We pinch them and bring them down so that we get more branching from them. Let's see. I have a couple more zinnias. Whoops. That was touchy. Some zinnias.
So these are this is what the finished product would be. Once you've grown them, harvested, made them into lovely arrangements.
Yeah, and you see like this particular bouquet over here, you've got some basil in it. See, we have the basil.
Use
And
that for
there's-
foliage a lot.
Oh, and oregano. Oregano makes a nice addition to your bouquet. So those are the things that you can use in your kitchen, your cooking, and you can use them in your bouquets. It's nice to have and they're so fragrant. And also, you all may like to grow dahlias. That's another fairly easy cut flower to grow. It just takes a while. You put the tubers in the ground in a couple weeks, and you won't get blooms probably till late August, sometime in August. But those are cut and come again. So you'll cut, you keep harvesting off of those. The more you cut, the more blooms you're going to get from a dahlia, and that's a tuber. Like the white one is a dahlia, and then the purpley ones are zinnias, of course. I think we have yarrow. Yarrow takes a little bit longer to grow. If you were to put seeds in the ground now, you may get some yarrow by late August or early September.
Have you had any problems with Japanese beetles?
Japanese beetles are the worst thing in the whole world. Yes, we cover every single flower on our dahlias with organza bags. Every single flower head gets a bag because we can't sell a bloom if there's a hole in the petal. So the dahlias are just something they love. What we do for our, the best we can do for the Japanese beetles, we have beetle traps. Those things that you can buy at Lowe's, and they've got a little scent, and it's a bag, and the beetles just go and they drop in the bag, and it's really nasty. But it's real nasty, and they start stinking. But it does draw the beetles away from our growing area, and all you would need is one trap out in your yard probably to keep the Japanese beetles at bay. Yeah, that's the one thing that we found that works for us. And again, we still have to cover every single beautiful dahlia.
Just the dahlias.
Just the dahlias.
And then the other flowers we have a takedown spray. It's the marigold bug spray
Chrysanthemum.
stuff. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Chrysanthemum, sorry.
Yeah. So that's a sunflower and zinnias. You can see how pretty they look together with a little bit of yarrow. Some black-eyed Susans. Those you have to start pretty early in the season. You might get something in September. They take a while. This one over here, you see some of the cosmos in with the sunflower. Does anybody have Sweet Annie just growing in their yard?
Sweet Annie?
Sweet Annie. Yeah, the one hanging down, that's Sweet Annie. That's it's kind of invasive, so if you get it, you need to be sure you've got a spot for it. And then there's we like to use mint. That's another, it's invasive, but if you had it like in a pot, that would be nice for or you kind of had a section in your cutting garden for it, you could do that. And this is like late summer bouquet. You have, you see we put some marigolds in here. And then celosia is another one. The pointy burgundy one that's up there on the side, that's celosia. And celosia is a lot of fun to grow, and some people call it coxcomb. That's a lot of fun. It takes a little longer also to germinate, to grow. The seeds are itty bitty, teeny tiny, but they just produce very fun plants. They're really fun.
What about the
The lysianthus, we get those from plugs. If you're going to grow something like the lysianthus, the one that's the pink flower up there in the right, you have to start those probably in December to be able to finally get blooms in June or so, June or July probably. And they're very difficult. They're a difficult flower to grow, but yeah, they're difficult. So we just get plugs for those because we don't have the time to deal with loss and not being able to do it. get it done properly.
Some big stems on here, let's say, because mine always just immediately fall right over.
Now tell me
And I
about.
bought them from plugs,
Uh-huh.
and I'll put them in, and they'll start luminized, and then they just fall over. They just can't lay over. They won't stand up. And I tried like staking them,
Uh-huh.
but they still keep
Even
them.
staking them, they didn't. Huh. Um, do you have a fertilizer that you use for them?
Well, we just moved now, so I'm starting fresh all
Uh-huh.
over again. But I've tried different kinds of fertilizers and different things that I'm not seeing the ones that I add to it.
Uh-huh.
But it's like they're always too.
2 weeks. Yeah, we.
Ours get really. We've started. We use Hortonova. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a really thick, strong plastic, and it's like, how would you
It's a
explain?
grid.
It's a grid.
4-inch grids.
And we do one about this height and then one about this height. So we double it, and still, if we have, a lot of plants that are really producing, they still kind of lean. But you mean they're going like just flopping?
yeah, the stems aren't weak. They just start getting so heavy.
They just get so
for
heavy
ours,
that they're
so I
just
don't know.
like
Yeah.
they don't stand. They won't stay straight up if we didn't have that support for them.
Yeah, I'm
so
not sure.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe it's just that. Do you buy the plugs local?
Yeah, usually I get them from my clothes.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe it's just not had a good foundation to get it to bloom well. It just could be the foundational growth of it. I don't know.
Another thing that we do also for most of our flowers is we do some fish oil. We do like some nutrient sprays that are organic also throughout the season, and that really helps with the growth and everything like that. And I do the Lizzies, probably once a week the whole
True.
season until they're really big and blooming, so they get
Till there's
babied.
too many.
Yeah, so the Lizzies get babied with that, and so. But I've seen that because I think the first season we didn't do it as heavily. It felt like, and we've started doing it more, doing more of the fish oil and the vitamins for the Lizzies, and that's really helped a lot. I think
Yeah.
with the production. So
That's good. Now, I guess you guys have all done it. So, do you have any questions? Any other questions? Gladiolas? Those are easy to grow. Those are from a bulb. You could, it seems like most of those are being planted now. Have you seen those in Lowe's? Yeah, those are easy to grow. Yes, they do. Uh-huh. Lots of the bulbs and the tuber type plants are really nice to have because they do come back. You just want to make sure when you buy them that they're for our zone. We're zone 6B, our growing zone.
Do you have, what are your resources for purchasing, like, seeds? Do you have a supplier?
Well, like our compost, this is really good, and you can do this yourselves. We get leaves dumped at our farm, which are great, and everybody gets leaves in the yard. You can just start composting your own stuff. So we get that in the fall, and we can go out there, and my husband goes out in his tractor, and he turns the leaves and lets the heat get at them, and that breaks down to this wonderful dark stuff that you saw back there in that other slide. So that's what we do for our compost. We use leaf mold. We did get them in by the triaxle load from Thoroughbred mulch company. I can't remember what it's called, Thoroughbred. And that got very expensive, so we started doing the leaf mold. And that is a very good soil conditioner. It's worked great for us. Seeds, we like Johnny's seeds. They have great seeds, and so does Geo Seeds. They have a seed catalog. They don't have pictures, but they have a seed catalog. Johnny's, you can see on a web page, you can see all the pretty pictures, but Geo has a better price point for seeds. The compost, I know there's a place for compost out a little further on Nicholsville Road, past town, on the right-hand side where all those tractors, but I don't know the name of that place where they have compost. So I really don't have a supplier for that one. Yes, ma'am.
What time to start
Pumpkins,
pumpkins?
you look on the seed and it'll say it takes 120 days. Count back for when you want it. So if you want them to be ready the beginning of October, count back 4 months and start them then. Yeah.
Another problem, I have a couple questions, is I put squash plants in and had beautiful 10-foot long, gorgeous plants. And then one day I went out and they're dying. The leaves are drying up and dying. You know what it was? It's those little bugs.
I was gonna say leaf borers.
To the stem.
Yeah.
And they suck the juice out.
Oh.
So I haven't planted it anymore, but I really like it. But what do you recommend?
Well, the thing like that, you don't even know what's going on until it happens.
Right.
And it's so
unfortunately, it was
annoying.
right at the base where the roots were, so.
Yeah.
I mean, I lost the whole plant, and they were just beautiful.
Uh,
And the leaves were as big as the chair.
Yeah.
Gorgeous, but, yeah, what do you do for those bugs?
We just use this same, this is all we use is this takedown garden spray. That's what it's called, takedown, and it's
It has like canola oil. It
yeah,
has
canola oil. It has
canola.
oil. Take down. It says take down.
Take down bug spray.
Yeah, it's a spray.
Amazon?
They have it on Amazon. I think Walmart might even have it. It's an
Yeah,
organic.
I've seen it at
type-
Walmart
yeah.
actually.
And
Yeah.
that's what we use. We don't use anything else just because we can't. We sell to Whole Foods, and so we have to be sure everything's organic.
Another thing I heard, maybe this is why I don't know, you're talking about the bugs that are on your flowers, is to use your dish soap water when you're done washing dishes and just take it out and pour it over your plants. And it will get the aphids and the other bugs like that.
Yeah, there are like recipes that use the dish soap in it for getting rid of aphids.
Would you need a milder dish soap like?
I think so.
canola?
I would do everything milder. Yes, yeah. But yes, that and water, and spray that on them. It does
You
get
think that would get
it.
like black spot on your roses and the mildew on your roses?
Do I think it would help that? No, I don't think so.
It's mostly just the bugs.
Yes, yeah. The marigolds? Miracle Grow. I don't use Miracle Grow, but Miracle Grow as far as for as a fertilizer, yeah. Yeah, you can use Miracle Grow. Yeah, it's an
Not
all-purpose. Yeah, it's just not organic, but it's still a good.
Do you do like the roses then?
We don't do roses at all because of the same type, Japanese beetles. We would have you really need to use some serious stuff to keep the roses going well. And since we're trying not to, we just don't grow them. But it would be great. I love them.
Have you tried saving your seeds, replanting?
We
Like
did,
zinnias?
there are some zinnias that we have seeds from that we just love, and we have saved those, but we don't take the time to do it. But yes, it's very easy. You just put one of those, like that bag those are right there. You could just put that over your flower head and let it dry out, and you can collect the seeds from it. Yeah.
And with the zinnias, do you let them get to a point where they have the mold before you're like planting other ones, or do you kind of say you branch this many times and then we're done?
I would.
They'll just go forever.
Yeah,
Mhm,
I would plan on it happening, like getting powdery mildew, and I would go like you have your first planting, say like May 15th. I would go on June 15th and do your second succession, so that when these are starting to get powdery mildew, these are good.
Okay.
I think a month apart should get you to the rest through the season. If you're still at it, then lots of people stop before the end because of the bugs and everything else that happens, or they go on vacation. But if you're still going, I think a month between them would be real good for succession. Yeah. Yes, ma'am?
You still believe in the don't plant anything in Kentucky?
Well, yeah, I mean, we still plant stuff and we cover, and yes, just because we really do have to have it going, we do. But as a home gardener, I always waited just to be sure. This crazy weather right now, how warm it is, we had hoop houses, and we had 100-footer twice with these big winds blow off, so just completely demolished. And we have sunflowers planted in there. We always start sunflowers early. So this is sunflower weather right now. We're trying to get our hoop house back, which is fine, but I typically wouldn't plant sunflowers out in the open until, in May, beginning, like the end of April, beginning of May. Because you know how it is. Something always comes up. It always happens. Mm-hmm. Have any other questions?
Flowers are beautiful. I've seen them.
Thank you. Thank you. We feel so blessed to be able to do that and grow them. It's a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I'm sorry?
How did we get started?
Well, we were, my husband and I were thinking about doing some kind of farming together, and we thought we'd do organic farming. And so I looked it up, and I thought, I can't do this, certified and do all that. And I came across flower farming. And so I said, well, I can do that. And so that's how it started. I've always grown, and we have 6 children, and so I always grew between, doing everything with them. And it was just something that I loved doing, and did that. And the girls, my daughters, were interested, and I said, well, let's do it. They came and started working together, and it's just been really nice, a family business. And we have some other seasonal kids that work with us on the farm that are so wonderful.
Mm-hmm. They do all the weeding.
Yes.
On your bed, on your 4x8, when you plant, are you planting just one plug in your square?
Yes, like giving you 12-inch spacing.
Okay.
Yes.
Because you got the first line, flowers are completely touching themselves.
Yeah, it's really 12-inch. It's 12 inches.
Okay.
And these, we plant zinnias on the farm at 9 inches. So this is allowing you a 12-inch spacing, giving you a little bit more room, because you probably won't harvest them as heavily as we do and keep them, and you need the circulation if you're not going to keep them.
So is that the front of the bed then, where all the plants are?
You can turn it around however you want. Yeah. I would say, this is that would be the front, because your sunflowers are going to be the tallest, and your cosmos are the next tallest, and then the zinnias. And we put some zinnia seeds in those little bags for you, and they do have some vermiculite in there, so when you go through it, just you just kind of have to separate the zinnia seeds from the vermiculite. But there's some seeds to get you started if you like them. They're just a variety of colors. Yes?
How long are seeds good for, like if you buy a packet, is it like, how long are they good for?
We keep ours in the refrigerator, and we have some that we are still using from 6 years ago. So that doesn't mean that they're as good as they could be, but I didn't want to throw them out, and I thought I'd try, and they're still good. But I'd say that 5 years or something in the fridge. But there are some that will not take the cool air of storing, like mahogany splendor. It's a hibiscus plant that we use the foliage from. You can't store something like that in the fridge, so it has to, if we don't use it, it's gone. Yeah. So you should be able to keep them in the refrigerator. Cool. That's what we do. Anybody else?
On your raised beds now, those are your planks, are they 12 inches?
Yes.
Width, and they're treated wood?
Yes.
And just turn so that's the regular ground, and then you add more.
Yes, those were on, yeah, we put those on top of the ground and then we filled them with some dirt and then lots of compost and mixed it all in together. Yeah. Anybody else?
I have another question where I come from, we don't mulch. And so when you're mulching around your trees and even around your flowers and your flower beds, so what is the packaged compost that you're mulching? Does it matter if it's that black wood chip stuff or what is it?
To mulch around your trees?
And
Yeah, the mulch around your trees, I mean, those are more like wood chips and wood. The compost should be more of a finer material. Are you asking what the difference is between a mulch and a
Well,
compost?
I get, yeah, what would be the better, I know about compost.
Is your purpose to keep down the weeds or is it to feed the soil?
More to keep it.
Okay, then that would be the mulch, and you could use, the wood chips or you probably want to make sure what is exactly on your the mulches that you get, because those you're going to be putting up next to your flowers if you're going to put them, and it could kill them. They could have some kind of, I don't know. I don't like to put the mulch from the bags right up next to those tender flowers. But you could keep them away from the stems. Yeah, it's just, but mulching does help keep the weeds back unless you're going to use something like the landscape fabric. Anybody else?
Have you ever used cardboard and hay?
Yeah, that's good too. Cardboard and hay, because that's all natural, and you can then at the end of the season you just work that into your soil and it'll help condition your soil. Newspaper also, if you don't care how the garden looks, newspaper is a great, not the colored, the funny section, but the regular part of the newspaper. That's a great mulch to use. You just put that all around in there, and then you can put the straw on top of it. You want to make sure with your straw or your hay, you're using straw, and you want to make sure that it's not seeded straw. We made the mistake of getting seeded straw, and I didn't pay attention to it. My husband got it, and so we have stuff growing everywhere. So
All in our tulips, tons of
Yeah.
weeds, all in the tulips. We're like, what happened? And she realized what she did.
Yeah, so make sure it's not seeded. But yes, that's a real good idea. And the newspaper, because it's stuff you have, probably.
If you have like peonies, we have like tons of peony bush plants, and we lay down cardboard like in a square around the plant to keep out the weeds, and the mulch on top of the cardboard, not up against the plant, and that keeps the weeds out too for our rows of peonies.
So I've seen hay. Do you guys?
Hay?
not
Hay
put-
for keeping weeds
Yeah,
out.
on the cardboard.
Huh.
And there was a discussion between straw and hay. Do you have a preference and where do you get it?
Well,
We
hay.
use- Go ahead.
Yeah, the hay, it seems like that would have seed heads to me. So we always use straw. The straw we get from Thompson Shearer.
But we
Usually-
use that the straw that we use is for insulation. It's not to keep the weeds out, really. I mean, it's somewhat to keep the weeds out, but more for insulation with like earlier spring flowers.
Yeah.
Right? Is that right? Okay.
For any of your flowers,
We do.
I have black-eyed lilies.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Built up.
Oh, yes. All those. Yep. We use phlox, perennial phlox. We have 9-bark is a bush that you all may have. We use the leaves from that in arrangements. The privet, we use privet branches. We probably have privet. We have hellebores. Those are perennials. Some heliopsis and Astantia, what was it?
I don't remember.
Yeah,
how to
that
say
one.
it.
We have lots of perennials that we use. We've got perennial yarrows that we really like. Those are really pretty in arrangements. But you can just plan your whole yard about, what is a cutting garden if you like to cut from your yard. I know a lot of people don't like to cut from their landscaping, but yeah, you could pull it all in. Any other questions?
Well, in that garden being full sun, how do you keep your babies open late summer? Mine always have to put mine in partial sun, because mine burns.
We just keep it watered really well. Our basil is always in full sun.
I always get the little black spots on them, no matter, and if I water, over water, then it gets dry. So I've never been able to do them in full sun.
You may, if you have the opportunity to do a drip hose, that may help. That'll help the little spots that you're talking about. Yeah. But our basil has always, it's all in the full sun. And it could be the one that we use the most. We have a Mrs. Burns lemon basil, which is absolutely wonderful, and then we have an African blue basil, and they're always out in the sun.
When you use them in the arrangements, or, because when my basil grows, I mostly use it for cooking, I pinch the little flower heads off. I'm assuming you're leaving these flower heads on for the arrangement.
We do. We leave them on, or we use them without the flower heads because we're really using it as the foliage. So we want it for the green part of our bouquets, and sometimes they'll have the flower, and sometimes it'll just be the leaves.
It's usually just the leaves. We harvest it before it gets to the flowery stage.